Thank you all so much for coming this evening. My name is Donovan. I'm from the class of 2018. I'm the co-chair of the YAC, and I want to welcome you to Brave New Workshop here. And for those of you online, thank you so much for joining us. So like I said, I'm from the class of 2017. I'm the co-chair of the YAC, which is the organization that coordinated this event tonight. Similar to the CSB and SJU alum boards, the YAC, as we affectionately call it, the Young Alumni Board, works to strengthen the lifelong relationship between alums and CSB+SJU through events like this. REDTalks is our signature event that began 6 years ago and has grown into a must-see show for all generations of the CSB and SJU community. It has been an honor to work with my fellow YAC volunteers and St. Ben's and St. John's alumni offices to bring you this event this evening. Before we get started, I do want to take a moment to thank and recognize some amazing sponsorships and partners that we had this year. The first person I want to thank is Sally Caring Zimney from the class of 1999, who generously coached tonight's speakers on their talks. She is a presentation coach, a speaker, podcast host, and the owner of This Moved Me Productions. So thank you so much. Our speakers are wonderful for this evening. I also want to thank Joey Hamburger from the class of 2013. He is the founder of Sheep Theater. He is going to be our MC this evening. Thank you to John Wessinger from the class of 1998. He is the author of the inspirational new book, Ride the Wave, How to Embrace Change and Create a Powerful New Relationship with Risk. And he is also the owner of Lateralis Solutions, and you can purchase his book this evening for sale over here as well. I also want to thank the Donald McNeely Center for Entrepreneurship under the directorship of Margaret Neumanich Newhouse. She's from the class of 1988. Thank you so much for supporting this event, as well as the student entrepreneurs who are actually here tonight showcasing their business. We have the perk here, and they are from our eScholar group. Shannon Zellner, friend of St. Ben's and St. John's. She's the founder of and president, of Positive Bookkeeping, specializing in accounting, payroll, and QuickBooks services. Thank you so much, Shannon. And last but not least, Mary Ressler and the Brave New Workshop team. This is the 6th year we've been accepted into their Project 824 program. As a part of the philanthropic initiative, we get access to this incredible space and first-class event services at an incredible discount. So thank you so much. In return, we promise to put on a show that contributes to their mission to showcase innovative ideas and contribute to humanity's ability to solve pressing problems and create a better world. And that is what we plan to do here tonight. No pressure, speakers, you've got this. All right, thank you. So without further ado, it's my privilege to introduce our MC for this evening, Joey Hamburger from the class of 2013. Joey is a writer, director, producer, designer, editor, videographer, animator, and performer. I think I got that all in, Joey. He is a millennial, and he watched The Simpsons a lot as a child. And Joey Hamburger is also writing this in third person, but he is using me, Ellen Donovan, as a vessel for these words to travel out for you all to hear. His name is Joey. His last name is Hamburger. It's a German last name. He works as a creative for The Stable, a consumer brand agency in Minneapolis. He's the founder and head writer of the Sheep Theater, a theater company where he has written and performed 13 original plays in the last 3 years. He went to St. John's University, and he really liked it. We are so excited to bring his performance skills to the REDTalks stage, so very excited, extremely excited, or my name isn't Ellen Donovan. Please welcome to the stage, Joey Hamburger.
Keep it going for Ellen, everybody, and a big round of applause for the young alums putting this event on in the Brave New Workshop for putting this on, this great event. They did a lot of hard work. Round of applause if you've been to a REDTalks event before. Round of applause if you've been to a REDTalks. Round of applause. Is it your first time at the Red Talks? Is it your first time? Awesome, awesome. Round of applause if you're on a date tonight. That's good if you're on a date. On a date. Wrong MC habit. All right. Round of applause if you're watching at home. Right. All right. That's good. I'm really excited to host this tonight, to do this. My really good friend and mentor, magician Jared Sherlock, he emceed this event last year, and unfortunately he couldn't do it tonight. Which is very unfortunate. I don't do magic. I just talk, which is like a little like magic, just not stupid, you know. I told Jared I'd do that, and he was like, "Oh, I don't think they'll like that." I was like, "I don't think you like it, man." I graduated from St. John's in 2013, and I just got my first job this past September, so it's good. Thank you. It deserves a round of applause, right? No, I mean, that's really good for me when you think about it, guys, because it's like really tough for me to get a job, everybody, because my name's Joey Hamburger, and people don't think I'm a real person, everybody. That is a cover letter that goes to the back of the pile. I actually had to start including on there, "Hi, my name's Joey Hamburger. I promise I'm real, not a crazy person." Which is sweet. It's good, though. I did the whole major, and I majored in the theater thing, which is nice. I miss that whole like lifestyle. I miss those classes where you just laid around and breathed for an hour. Guys, I got an A, everybody. I got an A. Kid next to me was a smoker. He got a C. He was not good at the breathing. I work now. I do a lot of stuff in the interneting. I do like a lot of like the stuff in the internet. I do a lot of stuff in like the kind of the creative, social, digital world, which is it's fun because like technology's gotten pretty cool right now. Like I think it's like the other day I was texting my girlfriend. I was writing her a nice note because I'm a good boyfriend. I was writing her "I love you," and my phone gave me a suggestion of what to add on to the text, right? So I wrote "I love you," and then my phone told me to add "so much." I love you so much. Guys, that's a smart phone, everybody. That's a really smart phone. But not that smart because you just kept adding things, right? So I wrote "I love you so much." Then it told me to add "better." What? That's a weird thing to say, phone. "I love you so much better." Better what? Better now that I have my money. Guys, I don't know what your phone thinks about you, but my phone definitely thinks I'm pimping out my girlfriend, right? Like, I don't want my girlfriend to think that I'm pimping her out, right? Because I want to keep my girlfriend, right? I don't want to do this single thing, because when you're single, people think you don't want to be single, so they try to set you up on dates with vegans, right? And that's like a tough date, everybody. Also, that's not my bit. I'm not like Joey Hamburger. I hate the vegans. Joey Hamburger doesn't like the vegans. No, just say it's a tough date. There's like 3 places. Where do you go? I don't know. What's the time? Technology. It's a cool feature, this whole predictive text feature in our going on right now. It's just based on like your previous thoughts and stuff, but I don't know, it's really cool when you go into Google and you type in "how do," and Google's like, "Oh, you're about to ask, how do I get pink eye?" And you're like, "Nope." Wasn't going to ask that, Google. But maybe you think I need to know. All right. If you guys want to know how you get pink eye, Google it. It's a great thing about it. I love to Google. I Google. Literally my entire job is just Google things. Like that's how I like figure out how to do everything. And I love that so much. And I thought it was the funniest thing. I was hanging out with my little cousin. She was doing geography homework. And she asked me a question. And I'm an adult. And I don't know where anything is. So I was like, you should just Google it. She's like, "Oh, we're not allowed to do that." It's like, what school do you go to? Like, what do they want you to do? Find a map? I don't even know where to find a map, everybody. If I had to find a map, I would Google, "where is a map?" And Google would be like, "I got a map." I don't even know where to go for that. It's just kind of that's a goofy thing. I just think technology is so cool right now that all of our answers, like everything I need to know is in this device. Like everything I could possibly ask is just like right here in this. I can give Perkins Yelp reviews in this device. I know that's unnecessary, right? Like we don't need to know that. And I'm always amazed. I'm like, why are there reviews on Yelp for Perkins? Like who is that for? Like what is that? Like a 1-star review at Perkins, like what do you expect? But like a 3-star review at Perkins, that's just Perkins. Everybody. You could literally put 3 stars and write in Perkins, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that sounds about right. The thing that amazes me, though, the 5-star review at Perkins. What the hell happened to you at that Perkins? Like, what did they do for you? I need to know. I just think, I don't know, it's the coolest thing. But guys, we got a really great show for you lined up tonight. I'm really psyched. We got great speakers coming up here. The way it's going to kind of work throughout the night is each speaker will come up. They'll give a 10-minute speech. We're going to keep it to 10 minutes. If they go over, there'll be a gong. Yeah, no, I don't know. No, I just shout at them from the audience. Like, ah! No, I think it's that buzzer sound, and we'll just kind of wrap things up. Frank will be here to give them things. We want to keep everybody to their time because we want to be done before 3 a.m. I got places to be, people. I got Netflix to watch. And then we're going to have a 15-minute intermission in the middle. But feel free to get up, go to the bathroom anytime. Shows are way more enjoyable if you don't have to pee. So, like, if you have to go use the bathroom, they're down the stairs. Down there's a bathroom. Feel free to get a drink. Are you guys ready to see some REDTalks? I almost copyrighted myself there. You don't want to do that. But we're gonna have a really great night for you guys. Feel free to tweet out #REDTalks2018. But you guys ready for your first speaker? Our first speaker tonight is Mackenzie Lobby. She's a lot more active than me in life. She's the author of Mindful Running, recently published by Bloomsbury, USA. And she has been published in a number of leading publications, including theatlantic.com, ESPN, Runner's World, Self, and Outside. Mackenzie holds a graduate degree in sports psychology from the University of Minnesota. And she in the kinesiology. I can't read. And has completed 14 marathons in the Ironman triathlon. Mackenzie lives in Minneapolis with her husband, 18-month-old daughter, and some kind of dog that starts with a V. Everybody give a warm welcome to your first presenter of the night, Mackenzie Lobby. Everybody.
Good evening. Thanks so much for having me tonight. So I want you to think about what comes to your mind when you think of meditation. What are those images that come to your head? Well, at one point in my life, this guy up here meditating on the mountainside in a loincloth pretty much summed up my ideas about meditation. I assumed it was this kind of esoteric, spiritual exercise that involved new agey music and maybe some chanting. And so you may be wondering how someone like me, who is pretty skeptical and held these pretty misinformed stereotypes, ended up becoming a devoted meditator. And in my case, it all started with running. So I want to start with a quick story about the 2014 New York City Marathon. And this race is held every November, and so it can definitely serve up some pretty unexpected weather. But the 2014 event will really go down in history as one of the worst years in terms of conditions. This Arctic blast of air had swept across the country that week and arrived in New York City just in time for race morning. And these frigid 45-mile-an-hour winds were requiring race organizers to dismantle signage along the course. And the news crews along the course were having trouble keeping their video feeds up and running. And once the runners got going, these crazy crosswinds were nearly picking them up off their feet and blowing them sideways. And it was basically just a categorically brutal day for everyone involved there. And all the while, race director Mary Wittenberg stood at the finish line, as she did every year for many years, and that's where she would wait and greet the finishers. And as a journalist, I oftentimes get to interview people like Wittenberg. And I was talking to her about the event, and she brought up this 2014 race because she felt like it revealed something particularly striking that she hadn't seen before in all her years standing there at that finish line. And she said that she felt like the horrible weather conditions really put the runners in two distinct camps. So as they crossed the finish line, there was the camp of runners who appeared really tense and displeased with the entire experience and maybe muttering under their breath, and they looked really upset. And then there was the other camp of runners who appeared, windburned and cold, but kind of unfazed and actually pretty relaxed. And she wondered aloud to me, how could there be two totally different experiences in the face of the exact same conditions? And she surmised that that first group really ended up getting so wrapped up in worries about how that weather was going to affect their end goal in their finishing time that they really tensed up and fought that wind all 26 miles. Whereas the other group, she felt like kind of relaxed into the elements a little bit, just took it one step at a time and just tried to enjoy the day out there. And that meant that they were kind of less punished by that wind and they had a better overall experience. And I really like this story because I've been a runner for a long time and I kind of recognize myself in both groups at different points in my running career. So early on, I ran just because purely for the love of the sport. And it was just I loved the process of training and the process of going out for a run. But as I got older and I began running more marathons and I got more concerned about running personal bests or qualifying for races, I kind of put my blinders on and ended up kind of getting lost in the hustle for achievement. And the result really was that I kind of tensed up. And this introduced a lot of stress and anxiety surrounding running and more injuries and eventually burnout and just really a loss of joy overall. And I think a lot of us do this in different areas of life where we end up so focused on some end result that we don't take life just moment by moment. And it causes us to really tighten up and kind of fight the winds of life. So I began to wonder, how might I reframe my approach to running? And that's where mindfulness came in. So mindfulness is just defined as it's all about just upholding a present moment awareness in a non-judgmental manner. And so it's about really paying attention to what's directly in front of you. And so when I brought this spirit of present moment awareness to my running, I found an almost immediate easement of my stress and a return of the joy I felt early in my running career. And what's more, I was running a lot healthier. I wasn't getting injured. And I was running better, too. And so I began to think that this was kind of a revelation, because I think a lot of us understand that mindfulness and meditation might benefit us, but we're wary of traditional seated meditation, or we just feel like we don't have time for another thing in our schedule. So this felt like maybe you could get some of the benefits of mindfulness through activities you're already doing. So I started getting curious about this, and I began to interview other runners and Olympians and coaches and neuroscientists who study meditation. And this all became the inspiration behind my book, Mindful Running. And I learned a lot along the way. For instance, did you know that research out of Harvard suggests that our minds wander upwards of 50% of our waking hours? And on top of that, they tend to harbor a natural negativity bias when they're left to their own devices. So when you hear the reference to the monkey mind swinging from treetop to treetop, that's what they're talking about. And when they put people in MRI scanners and just let your mind wander, they find that an area of the brain called the default mode network lights up. And while all mind wandering is not bad, and the default mode network serves important functions, it's also associated with anxious and self-referential thinking. So it's not a place you want to get stuck for too long. And conversely, when they put people in the scanner and ask them to meditate, that default mode network goes offline. So in addition to that, there's related research that really shows that meditation has been linked to reducing the biomarkers of stress, to reducing our perception of pain and discomfort, and to helping us more adeptly cope with anxiety. And so how can you begin applying the principles of mindfulness to things you're already doing? In my case, I implement these simple scanning exercises when I run. So first I do an environmental scan. So I engage my 5 senses and try to really drop into my surroundings. Next, I do a head-to-toe body scan to figure out how I'm feeling physically that day. Do I push or do I back off? And finally, I do a mental scan to kind of see where my mental and emotional weather is at that day. And I think that while my anecdotes are about running, you can really apply these things to other things you're doing. So since writing my book, people have told me they use these techniques for everything from gardening to hiking to cycling. And all it takes are these simple scanning exercises that I mentioned, and then choosing an anchor to the present moment, which is usually for me my breath or my foot strike, and just trying to pay attention to that thing. And I think the idea is that you don't need to be that guy sitting in lotus position on the mountainside to gain some of the benefits of mindfulness. And best of all, the science of neuroplasticity suggests that when we apply mindfulness to one activity, whether it's seated meditation or running or something else, that it has the potential to change our brains in a really long-lasting fashion. So it's basically like bicep curls for the brain. So every time your mind wanders and you notice and bring it back to the present moment, that's like a rep in the gym. Those neural pathways are strengthened, and you become more mindful in all areas of your life. And that's certainly been my experience. I think mindful running has helped me become a more mindful parent and a more focused writer. And when those, winds of life do pick up, and I notice myself tensing in response, and that news ticker of worries in my mind about the future taking me out of the moment, I'm better at realizing that's happening now. And I realize that I just need to remind myself to pause, be where my feet are, and run the mile I'm in. Thank you.
Keep it going for Mackenzie Lobby. Havey, everybody. If you guys want to know, her book, Mindful Running, is for sale over in the corner. If you guys want to pick that up after. And our next second speaker tonight was born and raised in West Central Minnesota. After graduating from St. John's University in 2006, Nick served as with the St. John's Abbey Benedictine Volunteer Corps. Nick is kept busy as a member of the St. John's Fire Department since entering the Abbey in 2006, and also as a faculty resident on Mary 1 and as a university chaplain. He enjoys being active outdoors, running. Nick, I got a book for you, man. And swimming, skiing, biking, beekeeping, and gardening. Nick sees his vocation to the monastic life as an opportunity to share in Christ's mission through ministry to others. Everybody, please help me welcoming Father Nick Kleppers, everybody.
We worked on the name on the front end there. It's a tough one. So close your eyes for a minute and imagine you're back at St. John's. You're at evening prayer, because it's one of your favorite things to do, huh? About halfway through, the monks are chanting, "Praise God in his holy place, praise him in his mighty..." Pagers go off. 3 monks pop up out of their choir stalls. Disruption ensues, huh? You can open your eyes if you're still imagining. It's a good place to be back at. 3 monks jump out of their chairs, run out of the church, all the way to the fire hall. We doff our black habits. We don our yellow firefighting gear. We hop into the truck. We drive off with energy, knowing that they had just paged us to 4th Tommy. We drive into the fire lane. Hopefully Gary's Pizza is out of the way. We get up to 4th floor and there's smoke. This could be the real thing. We're running to the elevator lobby where we've been paged, only to find a forlorn freshman staring at his melted pizza in the oven. Just another typical day for the St. John's Fire Department. Saving St. John's from burnt pizza and drunken debauchery since 1939. You're welcome. We've been at this business of being fire monks for quite a while. It was a fateful January 21st in 1939 when the paint shop caught fire. The coldest day of the winter, of course. A few monks assembled with one tattered garden hose, a bucket, 2 ladders, and some axes, and they went after it, unsuccessfully. The poor thing was gutted. By morning, all that remained were brick walls, nothing else. So the monastic community gets together, they have a chapter meeting, and that day they commit to buying their first fire truck, the birth of the St. John's Abbey Fire Department. We've come a long way. We're still at that ministry today. And in fact, instead of being a department of all monastic members, now we're a department of 3 monks, 16 student firefighters who are well trained, a layperson who's our chief, and a neighbor who helps us out. Let's just say we're a small department in the summer months. And we still respond to about 250 calls a year. Some of them can be serious, some of them less serious. Some of you might have paged us out. But yet, we're committed to caring for the place. In fact, I think it's probably a Benedictine value of stability and stewardship of things, right? So Benedict says in the rule that every utensil, every good gift that you've been given should be treated with care as if it's a vessel of the altar. So us as a fire department are very in tune with making sure that the place, the things we've created, are treated with dignity and respect. So too goes, I suppose, on our medical calls where we try to treat you with some dignity. So come to maybe my ultimate fire call. It was another January evening, the coldest of the year. We drove the truck uphill both ways across the street. The new paint shop is on fire again. This time, if there's firefighters out there watching online, I did show up late. The monastery on Tuesday nights has hostess, so we have beer and wine before dinner. I missed the page, and so I was having a beer when somebody says, "Isn't the paint shop on fire?" I got there in due time. And we fought hard, but unsuccessful. That building wound up being taken down by a front loader. We had better hoses, more equipment, but we tried really hard. And I think it was in that night where I realized our life as fire monks, our ministry as firefighters, isn't necessarily always about saving buildings. Rather, maybe it has something more to do with relationships. Maybe it has something to do with the people we meet or the students that we work with. So, like I said, I work with 16 student firefighters. They're incredible guys. They've been trained well-ish, I think. We don't see many. That's a great photo, by the way, of Brother Eric and Brother John, our other monastic firefighters. But if Benedict tells us to take care of our stuff, he even more so tells us to take care of people. There's that real Benedictine value of respect of persons, to see Christ in each other. And it's tough, right? The toughest monk in the monastery to see Christ in is the one you don't like. But yet, Benedict challenges us to do it. So herein lies the unexpected ministry of being a fire monk. It's not always about saving burning buildings or rescuing sick people, but it's about seeing Christ in the other. And for me, it's been very much about seeing Christ in the student firefighters that we work with. One of those firefighters is Mike Stegora. Any of you know him? A 2016 grad, I think? You were his RA. You did good work. Mike was great. So he enters St. John's as a freshman, applies to be a student firefighter, gets hired and makes a 4-year commitment to that ministry. And in that ensuing 4 years, I got to know him really well. We were able to share stories. He shared when he was struggling. When he had a big choice, he might come to me and say, "Hey, Nick, can you help me out?" And it was in those rubbing shoulders on fire calls up to 4th Tommy or to Placid or to Vincent Court more frequently, where we might be able to check in with each other. And it was there that I saw Christ in him. And it was only as he neared his graduation that he let me know how much that relationship had meant over the years. Maybe embarrassingly, and if he's watching, this could be really embarrassing. After his senior baseball year, or senior year of being a baseball player, he gave me his first home run baseball. He didn't give it to his girlfriend. And he wrote this incredible note that said, "In you, Father Nick, I was able to see a mentor, someone who helped shepherd me through some difficult times. You gave me the advice that it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission." There's our poor paint shop. Success. It was in that moment that I recognized, knowing that as ministers, we care and do. And so, unexpectedly, I probably do this with every student firefighter that I've met. So the takeaway for you all, there's probably plenty of single men here. You could join the monastery to start your unexpected ministry. Any takers? Joey had you clap earlier, if anybody's interested. abbeyvocations.org. The takeaway. Each of us have jobs which we enjoy, right? And work that we do that is expected. I expected to get paged out of choir, woken up in the middle of the night, to leave my chaplaincy job at times to go respond to calls. But it took a little stepping back to realize, what are some of the periphery things in that ministry that really make meaning, that add up to be great in our ministry? All of you have been through a Benedictine education in which you know Benedict teaches you to see Christ in the other. So how well are you doing when you do that with your coworkers or the people who come to be at your place of business? All of us have the opportunity to be members of an unexpected ministry. So take up the rule of Benedict. Take care of the stuff you own and love the people that you work with. Thank you.
I always thought that was the coolest thing that St. John's had its own fire department. I always thought that was really sweet until I set off my fire alarm, and it wasn't pizza. Everybody, keep it going for Father Nick Kleppers, everybody. One more time. Our next speaker tonight is Dennis Moriarty. Denny graduated from St. John's University in 1969, and then he attended William Mitchell College of Law, receiving his Juris Doctor in 1973. He was elected Scott County Attorney in 1974, and during his tenure there, he established himself as a trial lawyer representing Scott County in both state and federal courts. At the conclusion of his 4-year term with Scott County, Dennis returned to private practice, forming the firm of Jaspers, Moriarty, and Wahlberg, PA. He and his wife, Bennie, his wife's Mary. He and his Bennie wife, Mary, from the class in 1971, live in Belle Plaine, Minnesota. Everybody, please welcome me, Denny Moriarty, everybody.
Thank you. When I went to St. John's, the La Playette had its own fire department, and I was instrumental in handling that. I'm here to talk about Families Moving Forward, which is a program sponsored by Beacon Interfaith Housing Cooperative. That's a group of 80 faith communities, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, all working together to address the issues of homelessness. Now, faith communities working together is different for me. I grew up in a small town, 2,000 people, where all the Catholics drove Chevrolets and all the Protestants drove Fords. We didn't have, with 2,000 people, we didn't have blacks or Jews or Muslims to blame for our lot in life, so we were stuck with blaming other Christians, but it seemed to work out for us okay. In any event, Families Moving Forward takes care of 50 families a year, 4 families at a time, going faith community to faith community. That amounts to about 17 people. And you'll find that of the 17, about 10 or 12 will be children. Now, I spent most of my life not seeing homeless people. So imagine my surprise when I learned that tonight, in the Twin City metropolitan area, there will be over 6,000 homeless people. Dr. Mary Beth Shin of Vanderbilt University did a study on homelessness in Minnesota, and she indicates to us that of those 6,000 people, 2,000 of them will be children, and half of those will be under the age of 5. Now, everybody has their own preconceived idea about what homeless people should be like, and oftentimes we're disappointed when they don't live up to our expectations. For example, homeless people should be polite, they should be appreciative, they should not smoke cigarettes, they should not have cell phones, and they should not carry large flat-screen TVs into the homeless shelter, and they definitely should not be obese. We recently hosted our 4 families during a community celebration in my town, and we had our 4 families, and a little girl celebrated her 7th birthday with us. She looked a little bit like Shirley Temple, except she was black and she had cornrows instead of curls. By the way, people of color are 2.5 times more likely to be homeless. Anyway, we took the families to the ballpark, and they went on the carnival rides, and they ate at the fireman's stand, and they saw the fireworks. And that night on the way home, this little girl walked up to me, and she took me by the hand, and she said, "This is the best birthday I've ever had." And I said, "Oh, I'm so glad you were with us, sweetheart." And she said, "Can we go to Barbecue Days tomorrow night?" And I said, "No, I'm sorry, but Barbecue Days is all over." And then she said, "I wish every day could be Barbecue Days." So you say, why is this going on in this beautiful state, this state of Minnesota? Why do we have this problem? Well, one of the reasons we have this problem is because there are 100,000 families that live in the Twin City metropolitan area that pay 50% or more of their income for housing. That's 100,000 families who are a broken down car or a sickness away from being homeless. Dr. Shin tells us that if you want to rent a modest 2-bedroom apartment in the Twin Cities, you need to earn $18.60 an hour. And if you're working minimum wage, then you need to be prepared to work 78 hours per week just to pay for homeless, just to pay for your residence. So you say, what's the federal government's interest in this? We do have Section 8 housing. Section 8 housing is a lottery system. Like most lottery systems, the people that don't participate have just about as much chance of winning as the people that do. Last year, 36,000 families applied for Section 8 housing in Minnesota. Of that 36,000, 29,000 lost the lottery immediately. The remaining 7,000 were placed on a wait list, anywhere from 1 to 7 years. The number of years actually depends on the number of children that you have. So you say to yourself, what's the market like? Well, medium price housing is prohibitive. I mean, that's out of the question. But what if you wanted to buy a $150,000 house? You got to have a down payment. You got to have 20%. You got to have $30,000. What if you just wanted to buy or make that first month's rent payment and the damage deposit? That's going to be like $2,500. Where are you going to get the money to do that? Most of the homeless people that I deal with don't have personal bankers. And as a result of that, you've got to look for some place to find money, okay? Now, if it were you and I, we would probably have looked at our parents. But interestingly, in the Twin Cities, in spite of the fact that 75% of white people own their own home, only 23% of people of color own their own home. Now, if you don't own your own home, then you cannot borrow against it, to put your child through college, or to help your daughter get married, or to help one of your children buy a house, or to come up with that damage deposit when it's necessary. Why this incredible disparity in home ownership? Well, it goes back to one of the reasons is in 1946 they passed the GI Bill. The GI Bill was the first time people could buy homes with zero down. Incredible. Regrettably, of the first 67,000 mortgages that were issued by the Veterans Administration, they weren't given, they were guaranteed by the VA, less than 100 went to people of color. In the next 30 years, less than 3% of the money that was guaranteed by the Veterans Administration went to people of color. And you say, why is that? Because of discrimination. Banks and mortgage companies would not loan money to people of color even when the federal government guaranteed payment. So, you got to stand back and you got to say to yourself, who in the hell's at fault? To paraphrase Julius Caesar, I would ask anyone here, does anyone believe that this country cannot provide affordable housing for its people? Last January, this Congress passed a tax cut. That tax cut gives a tax break to hedge fund managers, not hedge fund managers and plumbers, just hedge fund managers. That tax break costs the federal government $8 billion. If you happen to own a private, or if you happen to own a private airplane, lo and behold, you get a tax break too this past tax time. That tax break costs the federal government $50 million. And if you're one of those lucky people that happen to own a private golf course, then you too, like this little one down in South Florida, it's called Mar-a-Lago, you too get a tax break. That tax break costs the federal government $600 million. And we all know that there's adequate funds to build a wall that doesn't keep anything in and doesn't keep anything out. That wall will cost $24 billion. So you see, my friends, Cassius was right. The fault, dear Brutus, lies not in our stars, but in ourselves. It's we, the middle class, that are responsible for homelessness in this country. It's not the rich, because there's not enough of them. In the last election, 60 million people voted for an agenda that ignores what the Gospel of Matthew refers to as the least of our brethren. We recently hosted our families at Christmas time at the Presbyterian Church. And the Presbyterian Church is tiny. It was built in 1865, and we were down in the basement. It's beautiful, but we had to hang bed sheets from the ceilings, and we divided up the living spaces. They're about as big as this stage. And on the second day of hosting, we got a call from Families Moving Forward saying, can you take a fifth family? And I'm holding the phone, and I'm saying, I don't know. And while I was there, and while I was talking on that phone, one of the young moms came up to me, and she said, if you need room for another family, I'll give them half of my space. Homelessness in this country is an embarrassment. It's a scourge on people of faith. The next time you hear someone talking about this country's dedication to equality, I want you to say or gently remind them that we always haven't been very good at that. And that as a result, there are certain people in our country that need special help, kind of like the little guy in the end. If the little guy in the end, like the homeless, if they don't get special help, then they will never see the game. If you or your faith community or your organization would like to hear more about Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative or Families Moving Forward, please give me a call. Thank you very much.
Keep it going for Denny Moriarty, everybody. It's fantastic. Our final speaker before the intermission, everybody, is Oliemi, is a senior at the College of St. Benedict who is majoring in political science and minoring in anthropology. Originally from Maplewood, Minnesota, Oliemi is an intercultural lead scholar, a John Brandel scholar, and current president of the Climate Action Club. She was one of the selected few students grants official observer status at the 2015 United Nations COP21 Climate Change Conference in Paris, France. Oliemi studied abroad in London, which is cool because I did that too. But all the other cool stuff she did, I did not. That is just Oliemi. She currently works for CSB+SJU Admission and Student Accessibility Services. Please welcome your next speaker, Yemi Fatahunzi, everybody.
Wow, thank you so much for that introduction. You make me sound very cool. Like he was saying earlier, my name is Oliemi Fatahunzi. I'm a senior St. Ben student, and I'm majoring in political science and minoring in anthropology. And tonight I want to share with you all a unique experience that I was able to have about 2 years ago that has really broadened my global perspective and my view of the world and global issues. So just to give you a little bit of context about who I am and where I'm from. So I'm originally from Nigeria. My family immigrated to the United States when I was about 3 or 4 years old. And so I grew up in the east side of St. Paul. I went to elementary, middle school, and high school there. And when it came time to choose a college, my brother, who is a Johnnie alumni actually of class of 2013, he convinced me. He said, you know, you should really look at St. Ben's and St. John's. I think it'd be a really good fit for you. And so for the first time, I actually listened to him, and I took that chance, and I decided to enroll at St. Ben's. So coming in as a first-year student came with its challenges, feeling homesick, going from a city to a rural area, having to adjust to classes, meeting new friends, and then also just being a first-generation college student, as well as being a person of color in a predominantly white school. And so I felt like I didn't really have a purpose at the school at first. I didn't really apply myself, and I just didn't know where I fit in. And so that all changed for me during my first year. So we all have first year seminar class. Everyone remembers first year seminar, super great time. And my first year seminar was taught by an anthropology professor, Jessica O'Reilly, and she themed the class the Anthropocene and Climate Change. And so she comes to us in the spring semester, and she tells us how she wants to take a student delegation with her to a United Nations conference. And we all look at her and we're like, Jessie, are you okay? Like, did you get your coffee this morning? Like, how could you possibly want to take a group of first-year students to a UN conference? We're so inexperienced. We don't know what we're doing. We can barely get through each day. How could we be qualified to attend a UN conference and conduct research? But she said, no worries, that we were fine, and that she encouraged us to really take that chance. And so I was like, okay, this is my opportunity to challenge myself to do something that I've never done before. And so I took the chance, and I applied to be on the delegation, and I was accepted, which is honestly one of the best moments of my college career. And so we fast forward to fall of my sophomore year, around the time of the trip, and it's about a week before we're supposed to leave, and it's also my 20th birthday, so I'm super excited. I'm leaving my teens, going into my 20s, and my friends and I were in the Bryan basement, and they're singing happy birthday to me. I'm just feeling on top of the world, and then we watched the news about the Paris attacks of 2015, and I just remember feeling very confused and unsure of what that meant for the future of the conference and what that meant for the delegation as well. But luckily, they figured everything out, and they were still gonna continue on with the conference, and we were still gonna continue on as a delegation. And so my focus at the conference was specifically on marginalized populations and how they saw themselves being represented at global climate conferences. And so just to give you a little bit of context, so studies show that the Earth will most likely warm more than 2 degrees by the end of the century, bringing with it more hurricanes and other extreme weather, reduced air quality, and more infectious diseases, and among other impacts. And marginalized populations are those who have the smallest carbon footprint, yet due to their socioeconomic class, their geographic location, their gender, and their age, they're often the ones who experience the worst effects of climate change. And so at the conference, I went about my research doing mainly qualitative analysis. So I sat in on panels, I conducted a couple interviews, and I also created a small video that really just encompassed the entire experience. And one particular experience that I had there that really resonated with me and attested to the fact that my research was actually important and mattered at this conference was at the one of the panels with indigenous small island nations. So the conference had an indigenous peoples pavilion, and that's where I spent most of my time just because it pertained to my research. And so each day was dedicated to a different region in the world, and this specific day was dedicated to small island nations. And so I was wandering around just trying to find the next thing to soak up, and I came across a press conference actually with the president and prime minister of two small island nations, Tuvalu and Kiribati. And I remember listening to this in this press conference, and they talked about this concept they called migration with dignity. And what this meant was that they were preparing their people for displacement, essentially that they would have to change and adapt their entire culture, their entire traditions, and their livelihoods for not if climate change was going to affect them, but it was a matter of when. And that to me was really shocking and surprising because that was when I knew exactly why this research mattered and these people mattered. Because while they were present at the conference, they weren't allowed the same equal opportunity to talk and contribute to policy discussions that affected them the most. And the way this conference has really changed my life is that it really broadened my perspective on global issues and how I can be an advocate and the importance of listening to others and their stories and why their stories matter. And so in the future, for climate conferences, policy discussions, initiatives, it's essential that the voices of marginalized and underrepresented communities are heard and considered because their wealth of knowledge and their personal experiences and just being on the front lines of climate change is invaluable to the global efforts to truly reach climate justice. Thank you.
Keep it going for Yemi Fatahunzi, everybody. That concludes our first half. Get a drink. Bathrooms are downstairs. Have a fun time talking to people you haven't seen in a while. Don't worry. If you don't remember their name, they don't remember yours either. All you got to do is go, hi! Get a drink and enjoy your intermission, everybody. We'll be back in 15 minutes.
Please welcome back to the stage Joey Hamburger.
Hope everybody had a great intermission. Give you a round of applause one more time for your excellent speakers in the first half, everybody. That was really wonderful. Things have been moving along really well. It's been a really great show so far. I really like to. It's just a fun night of like getting new ideas and the things you've been thinking about a lot and like over and over again. One thing I've been doing a lot lately. You guys ever do the thing? You ever do the thing where you ever like, you know, if my younger self saw me right now, like what would they think? You ever ask yourself that? Do you ever do a question where you go, you know, if my younger self saw me right now, would they think I was cool? And then I think to myself, you know, what do I care what a dude who listens to Good Charlotte thinks about my life, right? Like, I don't care what that guy thinks. When I was younger, I used to wear baggy camo pants, a studded belt, a Ramones shirt over a collared shirt with a striped tie and a faux hawk. And if, like, that guy came up to me right now and was like, hey, I don't think you're cool, I'd be like, I don't think you're cool, man. I don't think you're a cool guy. But I've been finding myself lately, I've been like really missing the days of being a kid. And like I really miss the time period where I was a kid. I went to a wedding this past summer and I got sat down at the kids table. I was at the wedding. No, I was at the wedding actually of my girlfriend's like cousin. And the dad, he vaped the entire ceremony. So you knew it was a dope wedding actually. And but I sat at the kids' table, and everybody kept coming like, "Oh, we're sorry. Oh, we're so sorry." They kept going up, and I was like, "This is like the best scenario in the world. None of these kids care what I do for work. They think I'm super cool. They think it's really funny when like I use my knife as my fork and my fork is my knife, right? They're not counting my drinks. They're the greatest table in the world." And so I missed that like age period. It's been so sweet. The thing I miss most about being a kid, I think the thing I miss is just that thought, like, the things that I thought were like normal. Like one of the things that when I was a kid, my grandpa had diabetes, and he was also had polio. He was a very sick man. He sat in a wheelchair, and he had me sneak him treats. And I would sneak him the treats, but he wasn't supposed to have treats because of the diabetes. And my grandma would always know he'd been sneaking treats because she'd see it on his blood glucose meter. So then when he started to do, he'd be like, "Oh, Joe, give me the treats." And then it's like, "Grandpa." He'd be like, "No, give me," and I'd bring him the treats. And he'd be like, "Joe, give me your finger." And I'd give him my finger, and he'd steal my blood, right? And I thought that was normal. Like, I thought that's what you do with your grandpa, right? I thought that was just like a special thing between me and Pop Pop. And then he died. Because he couldn't handle my blood. No, I'm just kidding. It was all the other thing. But we were on our way. We were going to his wake. And I remember in the car, and I was like, why do they call it a wake? And my dad was, I think, to just make me feel better. He's like, "Oh, we're just going in case he wakes up." Which, like, to me at that age, that scared the shit out of me, right? Could you imagine at the funeral? It was just, it was him! He brought me the treats. He gave me the blood. John, the great guy. Anyway, guys, we're going to start off with your next half. You guys ready for your next half of speakers, everybody? We're going to have a great time. Your first speaker to start off the second half is Bridget Cummings, class of 2015. She's worked at the Obama Foundation as an operations analyst since January 2017. Prior to this, she served as a policy advisor at the Obama White House in the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. Bridget studied political science and economics at the College of St. Benedict and enjoyed participating in the College Democrats Club, intercollegiate golf. Everybody likes something, right? Student Senate and the Eugene J. McCarthy Center for Public Policy and Civic Engagement. She graduated from St. Ben's in 2015. Please help me in welcoming Bridget Cummings, everybody.
Thank you, Joey. I've worked for President Obama and Mrs. Obama for almost 4 years now. And if you would have told me that when I was in high school or college, I would not have believed you. I'll take it back 5 years ago. In the winter of 2013, two very unsurprising things happened. First, Bridget Cummings, a 20-year-old Bennie from Chaska, the one and only person to vote for a Democratic senator in her high school government class mock election, and a poli-sci and econ major, applied to be a White House intern with the Obama administration. Not too surprising. The second unsurprising thing that winter was that Bridget Cummings was rejected from a White House internship. I honestly was not shocked. But about a year later, I was studying in Elkland Library for finals, and I got an email from the White House Office of Legislative Affairs. Tears were like welling up when I got the email. I had reapplied and had an interview the next day. And St. Ben, St. John's professors and friends helped me prepare, and somehow, 4 months later, I found myself, if we go back one more slide, I found myself outside of the White House in a black suit the day after Memorial Day in D.C., sweating. And my mom can attest, I look kind of cool, calm, and collected in that photo, but I was freaking out on the inside. And so I walked into an auditorium with 149 other White House interns, and after probably only 2 conversations, I decided I'm the only non-Ivy League, student here. And so we had briefings throughout the day, and I found out I would be in the Office of Legislative Affairs with 4 other interns. And so the Office of Legislative Affairs is the office in the White House that liaises with the with members of Congress. So when they need something from the White House, or when the White House needed something from the House or Senate, they would come through our office. And specifically, I was on the House team, so I worked with members of the House of Representatives. And on the next slide, you'll see a few of those members that I met. On the left, we're at the Working Family Summit. And on the right, that's with Leader Pelosi in the West Wing. It was a hot day in DC. And the next two slides are a few exciting moments. So the next one is when a few of us were walking from the West Wing to the East Wing where our office was, and we ran into President Obama. We were really lucky that Pete Souza, the photographer, had been taking pictures right when we ran into him. As you can tell, I'm like super professional and calm. And in the next slide, we met Mrs. Obama. We had a Q&A with her. I asked her about women in the workforce. It was super special. And we took a picture with her. And then the last slide, our very own Dennis McDonough, Chief of Staff to President Obama, met with Bennies and Johnnies in his office. And then on the bottom, I played basketball in the First Family's court, and my team won, which was great. And then on top, I returned to my desk one day to find the First Family's dog sitting in my chair. So those are really exciting moments, but actually when I reflect on the summer, it was kind of rough when I think about the political environment in DC. There was a lot of really kind of hyper-partisan issues coming up, like the Affordable Care Act and how should we implement it. Immigration and DACA were huge issues that summer. I remember I was counting votes for my team when the House of Representatives sued the president over implementation of the Affordable Care Act, which was the first time in history that had happened. There was some, like wildfires on the West Coast, Ebola outbreak. And because we were the office that worked with the Hill, we were kind of consumed by it, and we had to know what everyone thought about it and study it. And on the next slide, this one back, we were, our last couple days at the White House, we were with President Obama taking a photo. And I'm in the middle. I tried to blend in my hot pink blazer. And he walked into the room, and right away I could tell, he looked so exhausted. I could see the gray, popping out of his hair, and it looked like something was like weighing him down. And he took a few questions from us, and it was kind of like brought me back to those gloomy issues that I had dealt with in legislative affairs. People were asking questions like, have you ever seen so much partisanship in DC? What's the future of our political system and these parties? And when he was answering, it almost weighed him down even more. And as they were closing, he started to turn away to leave, and something stopped him. He said to us, and I'll never forget, he said, "You are growing up in the best America this country has ever seen." And he said, there's more equity and justice. We know more about climate change than we ever have before. The economy is better than ever. And then he said something I'll never forget. He said, I'm so hopeful looking up at all of you interns. You remember my picture that I showed you before, dying outside of the White House, so nervous. This is one of my last days at the White House, introducing my family to President Obama. This was after 2 years serving in the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. And, his outlook on future generations and his hopefulness, despite all that's so wrong in the world and what he knows is wrong in the world, is what made me want to go back. Now I'm so lucky to work at the Obama Foundation, where our mission is to inspire and empower young people to change their world. So this is a photo of me and my team. it's been almost 4 years since that day in the White House when President Obama told us about, his outlook on the world and how hopeful he is for future generations. And I think there's so much that we can be down about when we turn on the news. And I think that, I think back on what President Obama said to us. He said, I'm so hopeful looking up at all of you. And that's what, gets me through all the gridlock and partisanship today. Thank you.
Keep it going for Bridget Cummings, everybody. What an amazing experience you had. That's great. Our next speaker is a sexy man. Hey, why'd you write that in your bio, man? Now, Gabriel's been building most of his life. When he was 10, he began working with his father and brother in a toboggan shop. He joined his uncle's construction crew at age 14, and he ran a small construction company throughout college. Since college, Gabriel has helped with the business and e-commerce strategy for his family's Northern Toboggan business. He's passionate about his career in IT, where he helps businesses create and grow their digital businesses. In addition, he and his wife, Katie Kochman, own and manage a residential real estate portfolio. Katie also graduated from St. Ben's, and Gabriel studied philosophy at SJU, and since graduation has spent countless hours studying psychology, entrepreneurship, history, human nature, and business. He sees building as a creative outlet with opportunity for never-ending learning. Please welcome a good friend of mine, everybody, Gabriel Heron, everybody.
So I love building a toboggan company. It is a tradition that is a second-generation tradition within my family, and it's offered me so much growth and learning, and also adventures. One adventure happened in July of 2016, where my brother and I took a trip where I drove from Minneapolis, Minnesota, up to Warroad, picked him up in the middle of the night. We drove across the Canadian border and immediately ate at A&W root beer, because that's what you do when you go into Canada. And we got some ketchup chips. And then after that, we went up to Winnipeg, Manitoba, where we stepped on an airplane, which was the first of 5 flights that we were going to go on for the next 2 days. And we eventually landed in Colville Lake, Northwest Territories. Colville Lake is a community of 200 Denny people. Not Inuit, not every native person above the Arctic is Eskimos. That's false. They're Denny people, and they're referred to by many as the people of the caribou. And so the people of the caribou have been living in this area for thousands of years in some of the most rugged terrain. And a really critical part of their livelihood is the hunting and harvesting of caribou. And one critical tool that you'll see in the upper left is the traditional toboggan. For centuries, they've relied on the traditional toboggan, not the downhill toboggan that most of us think of. We do make those, and I'll get to that. But it's considered the alternative to the canoe in the non-summer months. And that traditional toboggan was why we went on this adventure of a lifetime. That traditional toboggan is why Chief Richard welcomed us with vigor and excitement, because he'd been working with my father for over 20 years. He referred to Dad, John Heron, the toboggan maker, as an elder, which is one of the most highest signs of respect that you can give anybody. And that traditional toboggan is why he invested so much in teaching us about his culture, taking a day on the land to catch fish, hunt ducks, and as the sun was setting, we ate boiled duck, and we learned about the symbiotic relationship that they have with nature. It was truly a life-changing experience, and that was all because my dad is the last of the traditional toboggan makers. And how in the world do you start making toboggans in northern Minnesota? That's another story too, then I'm done with stories. But so my great uncle, my dad's uncle, Uncle Raymond, is a monk out of a monastery out of Winnipeg, Manitoba. And for most of his ministry within this oblate monastic community was to travel to remote regions throughout Manitoba and just do service work. And over the years, he learned of what was becoming a toboggan shortage. For some reason, a lot of macro economic trends that I don't have time to explain the toboggan makers stopped making toboggans, and they weren't bringing on apprentices. And my uncle knew that my dad, was an entrepreneur, really didn't like working for other people or authority. He definitely passed that down to me. He is gifted with his hands, and he's always been fascinated with the northern culture. We're a family of outdoors. We're a lifestyle business company, and my father was introduced to Milton Sheboyer through my great uncle Raymond, and went up to Thompson, Manitoba, met him, returned home, and in 1995, Northern Toboggan and Sled was born. And so this was a lifestyle business way before lifestyle businesses were cool. My dad built his shop with his family on the 40 acres that I grew up on, so he could walk out his front door, work with his hands, and work with the community and culture, an area of the world that's fascinated him. And I'm really proud of what he's done. It was not easy. He was bootstrapping. That was what we grew up in. We grew up in this time, a lot of times of struggle, but he persevered, and he was so meticulous in the product, he truly makes the best toboggan and sleds ever made. And in that process, in early 2000s, he started a website, and that's kind of what opened up our downhill recreational market. He kept on getting a lot of calls. He's like, yeah, I don't make those kind of toboggans. And after turning down enough business, he developed a downhill toboggan, and that's become a critical part of our business. All along the way, my big brother, Jackson, and myself were working in the business. We were shop hands. My brother was destined to become a manufacturing engineer. He currently is the director of all operations, operational engineering and continuous improvement for a billion-dollar manufacturing company. I mean, the guy knows his stuff when it comes to manufacturing. And I just like to be with my big brother and my dad. And so by default, got pretty good at building toboggans. So my dad always jokes, by the time we got decent at making toboggans, my brother, we each left to play junior hockey and then go to school. But along the way, we continued to work on the business and started to really develop a vision of our own. And we started to see that Dad's retirement is going to be a tricky thing. When you're a solo entrepreneur, how do you convert that into something that you can retire on? And so we also saw that we didn't want Northern Toboggan and Sled to die. Like, no way. So we really put our heads together, and we decided that we also wanted the third thing to implement our own ideas, because working with your old man on a business is frustrating as hell, and we wanted to do stuff our own way. So we took the torch. In 2016, we started Northern Toboggan Company, pivoted and gave us our ability to kind of branch out. And you see up here a lot of trends that are very applicable to a toboggan business. You see lifestyle brands, you see the revitalization of legacy American manufacturers who are turning themselves into lifestyle brands. You get this resurgence of pride in American-made products, and made in Minnesota, you have this makers movement and this desire to have connection with people making your products. So we just got to turn a mirror to the world and show that, like, yeah, we're doing that. We've been doing it for 20-some years. So these social media and digital media channels are something that we've really done a better job of telling our story, right? Just creating that transparency, like, hey, here's us doing our thing. And at the same time, as you see up here to your left, that's a third-generation toboggan maker in my lap right there. And we are on the land. We are playing with our toys. And how can we just share us playing with our products? And from that, we're going to build a community. And as we've been building this company, and over the last couple of years, we've seen growth by 20% each year, and we're really getting a lot of clarity. And we'll always make traditional toboggans and service this community and this fascinating culture. We will always make the best downhill toboggan and recreational toboggan money can buy. But what we've realized that it's a small market, and in order for us to keep our shop busy year-round, which is absolutely essential if we're going to pull on apprenticeship and a community of artisans to learn the craft that my father has taken so long to build, we're going to need to pivot. And so part of this strategy was partnering with Minnesota-made makers, some Johnnies, and E-Scholar, Duluth Screen Printing, Ian Sherber, he makes our apparel. We have Minnesota-made mugs and choppers and things relevant to celebrating the North, and really kind of creating some of these different merchandising channels. But beyond that, we're recognizing that we're much more than a maker of traditional toboggans. We're an artisan manufacturer, and we're storytellers. And so what's really exciting is that we're evaluating different opportunities to use our core competencies and make things that matter to a population of people. And so this last year, we found a snowshoe company, and we started growing through our first acquisition. And it truly opened up a world to us, right? So we're constantly looking for new companies that we can kind of build into our fold. This is the team. Well, we've got a community of artisan laborers that do come in, not photographed here, but it's my dad, my brother, my sister-in-law, who's the business administrator, who is the glue that keeps it all together. My brother and I are moonlighting on this. This is truly a labor of love. And with this team, we're really evaluating a lot of new ways to kind of grow and expand and continue this family legacy. And I do not know what we're going to be making outside of toboggans in 5 years from now. I do not know if we're going to be twice as big or we're going to be a $10 million manufacturing company. I don't know. But we're going to be sharing the story. So invite you to come along for the ride in your preferred digital media platform. Because what I do know is I'm going to be playing with my brother and my dad. And we're going to be continuing the family tradition of building a toboggan company. Thank you.
Keep it going for Gabriel Heron, everybody. Dude, when you said, like, oh, how do we keep the toboggan industry going, like, year-round? We're going to pivot. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Summertime toboggans. Like, I'm all in. That's awesome. Congratulations. Our next and final speaker, everybody, is an associate professor and chair of the nutrition department at CSB+SJU. She has been teaching about food and nutrition at the College of St. Benedict and St. John's University since 1994. She is passionate about food from every angle, how it nourishes us, how it produced, and how it brings people together. When not in a classroom or engaged in conversations in the Ardolph Science Center at CSB, Jane is active in her parish, her kitchen at home, or interacting with her 5 fabulous grandchildren. Jane is a graduate of St. Catherine University and has a Master of Science in Human Nutrition from Penn State University. She has professional experience in clinical and community nutrition in addition to her teaching experience. Please welcome your final speaker, Jane Byrne, everybody.
Thanks, and I just want to assure you that even though I'm a Katie, once a Benny, always a Benny. When I say the words comfort food, who do you think of? You think of Special K bars, but who were you with when you ate those Special K bars? When I think of comfort food, I think of the people who taught me to take food seriously. And they are pictured here. My mom snapped this picture in the late 50s. I'm the only talking person on my grandfather's lap in the middle of the picture. Pretty cute, huh? I don't know what happened. I don't really know what was going on at this event, but I can tell you there was food, there was lots of it, and it was delicious. And that association between food and family is really what inspired me to study food and nutrition when I went to college. And even though my academic career was rather tightly focused on the scientific realm of nutrition, I never really lost my passion for how food cements relationships, how food creates associations, how food really is the center of any fun gathering or event. We visit with the people, but we come for the food. And so while I find science fascinating, I'm really passionate about the relationship that people have with their food. No other species ever in the history of planet Earth has such a complex relationship with their food. Food is central to a stable society, and for that reason, humans have developed elaborate and complex systems for producing food and distributing food. We build our community around food. It centers our economic system. But closer to home, the ritual of the tables, the rituals and manners that you learn with your family are really the first place where we learn who our family is, who's invited to Sunday dinner, who's invited to the birthday party. That's where we learn about our history. That's where we learn about our traditions. That's where we learn to understand who we are in this family system. So eating together matters. The food matters. Food is a complete sensory experience. There's not a single sensation that isn't impacted by the food that you eat. And perhaps the most important sensation of all is that somehow indescribable sense of satisfaction that happens when your belly is full. Okay? So you can see it, you can hear it, you can smell it, you can taste it, but there's nothing quite like not being hungry anymore. Okay? The people that we share food with all of the time, the people who regularly take the same food that we do, become special to us. Food is essential to life. And because of that, when we share our food, it's an act of solidarity. The people that we share our food with, we create bonds with. And when we create those bonds, that food takes on meaning beyond words. The most simple food, when shared together, means something to us. It symbolizes ideas, concepts, emotions. And those understandings cross cultures, and they transcend language. How do we learn that? We learn that by eating first with our families. Food is a social transaction. For example, in our culture, if you meet someone new and interesting and you suggest that you meet for coffee after class or coffee at 10 o'clock, that means one thing, doesn't it? But if you meet somebody new and interesting and you say, would you like to have dinner with me next Saturday? Could I pick you up at 6? We all know instinctively that there's a different transaction taking place there, and we just let the food do the talking. So those social transactions are really important to learn because it gets us out of a lot of tight spots. And we learn that at the family dinner. But did you know that less than half of all families in the United States eat a meal together once a week? That is a really disappointing statistic. The benefits of the family meal are many, and I'm going to just point out a few. First, there's the practical. We know that people who eat at home more often eat more nutritious, higher quality food, and we know that it costs less money in the long run. Eating at home has value. But more important is the intangible. And those intangibles are many, and I'm only going to mention a few. But we know that young children who regularly share food at the family table have a much wider vocabulary. They know more words, they know what those words mean, they speak earlier, and they also show a much greater interest in learning to read, and reading is good. It's not all about Google. We also know that frequent and consistent family meals that are reported by adolescents is strong. The adolescents who eat it with their families more often do much better in school. So for some reason, this connection to your family actually improves your academic performance. We know that adolescents who eat family meals 3 or more times a week avoid socially unacceptable behaviors, things like smoking, abusing alcohol, drug addiction. We know that teens who eat regularly with their families make much better food choices when they're away from home, including college, by the way. And this is a good thing because it keeps you healthy. We know that teens who eat regularly with their families are more likely to be social and to have the self-confidence to meet people and to engage in more social transactions away from home. Now, you might be wondering how something as basic or simple as the family meal can create all of these really well-behaved adolescents and smart kids? Well, quite basically, when you break bread together, when you share food, you're forming a bond, and those bonds are permanent. Because food is so sensory, it creates lifelong and lasting memories, and people remember the event of eating with their family. It's also the case that when you come home and you go through that routine of getting ready for supper, it's a transition time. You're leaving that pressured public life behind, and you're creating a little space in the day where you can kind of ease into your private life. Getting supper ready, cooking together, the process of setting the table, getting ready to eat, it's predictable, it's structured. People know what to expect. And when children, in particular, know what to expect, it builds confidence. It builds self-esteem. Adolescents who regularly ate with their families report that they believe their parents are more supportive of them, know them better. They report a stronger personal bond to their parents as adults. I have 4 children. They were crazy. The table was chaotic. And I know that those of you with young children are sitting out there saying, this woman is nuts. She should eat at my house. I'd like to encourage you to persevere, because in the end it will matter. If you just hang in there, the kids will get the routine, and it will make a huge difference in their life. And when it makes a huge difference in their life, it makes a huge difference in our lives. Because healthy, smart, resilient, self-confident people make this place a much more enjoyable experience for all of us. When you mentor the art of conversation at table, when you mentor the art of active listening, and when you engage in a way that shows an interest in someone other than yourself, you create empathy. And empathy makes this a much more kinder and gentler space for us all to live in. Much depends on dinner. Bon appetit.
Keep it going for Jane Byrne, everybody, and all your fabulous speakers tonight. We're really grateful you guys came out to this year's Red Talks. We want to give a special thanks to the Brave New Workshop for helping us put this on, and to all our fabulous sponsors. And another special thanks to our technical team who helped make this all possible, and also the Young Alum Committee, specifically Megan Simmet-Hermes and Frank Zellner, who without them, I wouldn't have prepared. So thank you guys for having meetings and making this put all on. And also, of course, thank you to the College of St. Benedict's and the St. John's University Young Alum Committee. I love this school. I love the community. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Where you got the space till 9. I love how you guys keep thinking it's like the last word, so you're going for that final clap. It's like, hey, we're going to go for that. We got the space till 9. Hang out. Say hello to a bunch of great people. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to Red Talks 2018.